Hello. How you doing? Happy weekend. It's a rainy day right now, but it's kind of relaxing after the week I've had. Um, this is kind of like a quick, maybe not so quick video, just kind of outlining some of my thoughts. I don't want this to be FUD, but at the same time, I would like to have the information out there just in case. Because as technical analysis traders, you have to be willing to look beyond the scope of what some people typically look at. Or if they do look at it, they deny it. Now, do I think this is the highest probability? Not necessarily. But do I think this is a potential? Of course I do. Everything is a possibility, nothing is discounted. So when I talk about this and I show this chart, we've talked about the Nasdaq conspiracy theory and my thoughts on the whole world's economy type thing. Where would that put crypto? And is crypto in kind of a similar situation itself? Kind of. Um, and the way that this is kind of lining up, if this does work out pretty much as I call it, if things continue, world's economy should fail around 2025. If they manipulate the inflation, it might go a little bit longer, but it's still going to happen. Now, if I'm correct about BTC, which hopefully not, um, but kind of yes, BTC actually would be bottoming out either before or around the same time as the world's economy. So that might give a chance for some people to hop into a system they now trust because after this next failure of all this, I don't know where people's thoughts are going to be or if anything is going to be. All I can simply do is kind of hope for the best and play it by ear. I think that's what we all do. So, like I said, when I show this chart, it's just simply me looking at a perspective that I hold near and dear called Elliott wave and seeing what the plan would be if things did work out the way they did. Now, I'm going to show an example of the 2008 financial crisis on the Nasdaq with Elliott wave, and show you guys what that would have been and how you would have played that if I was around to help you guys when I was 8 years old. But I wasn't. But hopefully, with this new and upcoming one, or potential upcoming one, I will be. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. All right, so let's go over to the live screen and let's take a look at the NASDAQ real quick. We've already talked about this once, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. All right, so we're looking at the weekly chart. And back here was obviously there's a lot more information that comes before this, but you can definitively see right here that we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not your typical 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that you see on crypto because crypto is a supply and demand market that does not have manipulation of inflation, but it does have manipulation of people's egos saying, oh, the manipulation, they stopped me out. All right, big difference, big difference. One is true. One is just being an excuse for not looking at multiple scenarios and planning properly. So this was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The second that we put in an uptrend versus a downtrend with a higher high after that, that now becomes a 1, 2, 3. And then now once we put in another downtrend, that becomes the 4. And another downtrend after that, that becomes the 5. Now, as soon as you get a higher high, that's your 5. And if you ever get back down below the 3, even though you haven't even reached your target yet, you have to be preparing for a short position. That's kind of how the rules of Elliott wave go. So from this perspective, you would have been shorting the top of the market or at least getting your assets out into something safe. Now, that's the problem when it comes to stuff like this. The all assets are going to fall. But the difference is the rate that they fall at because you think about gold, people like to say, well, if you put your money into gold, it's safe. Technically, yes, but the problem is when it comes to reality, you would like to think that your gold holds its value or even goes up. But the problem is people are going to have to withdraw gold in order to pay for stuff. They might be able to salvage a lot of their net worth, but it's still going to fall because people are going to need to sell to pay off debt or just panic sell, whatever it might be. It's going to happen. So you could have gotten out of your assets, maybe held on to something that was a little bit more secure. And then from that situation, you would have taken the top and bottom of the 5 wave set and you would have targeted between the 0.618 and the 0.382. Now, technically, it can always come back down to zero, but you kind of want to sit for the middle ground and average in around there. Now, you would have set up a DCA net. Now, there probably would have been a lot more points than this if you have a lot more money, but that's kind of how it would have looked. You would have put in some of your portfolio here, 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 and you would have gotten 4 out of 6 of them hit, bought the bottom of the US financial market, and rode it up for the last 10 years, right? If you were using Elliott Wave. Now, just completing this full picture, right? We now have a 1 to a 2 off of this, or presumably a 1 to a 2, or even an ABC, who knows? I'm going to go ahead and do a 1 2, like so. That puts our 1.618 target at 207. And because of all this stimulus bullshit, we are approaching it extremely quickly. Now, hopefully things flatten out and we kind of go on the same trajectory or even slower towards that target. But the undeniable fact that once we reach it, that's when you need to be in panic mode, is still there. Now, if we do happen to have a financial crisis around that time, where would I be looking for the market to kind of bottom out? Well, once again, our best bet would be a local low, which fortunately enough, Corona provided that. And if you are using Elliott Wave to kind of its full mathematical scale, coincidentally, the low set by Corona corresponds to the 0.618, which would be the target for the fourth wave. And then hopefully the world goes into a nice peace period after that because people need to chill out. All right. As I say that, I get more more hype. But that's what I see for the Nasdaq. Now let's go ahead and talk about our good old buddy BTC. What do we have to worry about on BTC? Well, here's the thing. BTC is in a similar situation. And I hate to say that because obviously we're all here. We love crypto. We don't want to see Bitcoin, get a bad rap. But at the same time, this is a new market. And if it wants to prevail, and I'm not talking about for you, I'm talking about for humanity. If this wants to be the currency that changes the political landscape for the future, it all starts from the money. Money is how governments understand what they need to do in order to provide a better solution because trade is how civilization got started. Now, in order to have a long term civilization, you need protection for trade. So that's where governments come in. But at some point, governments get overbearing. And then there needs to be a reset, follow the Roman Empire. Uh, China was the first world inflation economic collapse. And that's why they're kind of so far behind us, even though they're ahead of us theoretically on the surface. It's just a matter of they got unlucky with how they did things, but we're about to make the same mistake, unfortunately. So, how do we prepare for that? Now, if you look at BTC, which is obviously the decentralized currency on the planet, that now takes the power away from the governments because originally, when you have physical currency that needs to be traded by banks or is held on a single person, which that person can get robbed, that's when you need protection. But if you have a currency that is protected by the system set in place by blockchain, nobody is going to come into your house and rob you. Now, obviously, people can go, well, they're going to hold you hostage and make them give you your private key. Well, yeah, but they can do that anyways. They can hold you hostage and go make you withdraw from your bank account. Good excuse. But now we have the money protecting itself, which no longer puts the government in the position where it has power over the people. So if this economic collapse now turns into the birth of people actually legitimizing the switchover to digital currency, where would that put BTC when that potential switch happens? Well, if this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 structure, and we get back below 20,000, if we do not come back above it, my target is going to be first a DCA at 3,000. The next stop would be 150,000 because if we take the top and bottom of the presumed fifth wave, if this is the top, like I said, I'm not convinced this is the top of this bull market. I'm just outlining some concepts. That would put the 0.618 between 1286 and $114. Now, obviously, using real price action, we can determine $3,000 as a local low that could hold support and potentially continue this trajectory to the upside, which hopefully that's the case. But if $3,000 fails and we don't come back above it, the if this and that statement is if $3,122 is broken, then that support of $163 wants to be retested. Now, I say wants to be retested. Doesn't mean that it will get all the way there, but that's what the market wants to see as a whole. So, right there, that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of just basic theory. Now, when it comes to projection targets for the future, what was Elliott wave, or specifically the start of an Elliott wave, which is typically an ABC? What did that call for the top? Well, if we take this and say this is not necessarily an 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but an ABC formation like this, if we take the top and bottom of the first major bull market of Bitcoin, that calls the top at 55,000. So there is a small potential that this is it. Now, like I said, I don't want this to be FUD. I don't want you to cash out all of your position, but what I do want to happen here is for you to be able to look at a different perspective, whether or not you believe in Bitcoin, and just think about it. That way, even if you don't believe me and it comes to fruition, you are at least not surprised. And I'm not going to be sitting there laughing in your face with my money and saying, I told you so. I feel terrible because we outlined this on live stream. If I become the world's next business mogul from this, people are going to look at me like I'm the evil one. But the difference is I'm willing to look at something that people are not. And even though it's so far fetched, it's still a possibility. And that's what matters. All right. So that's what we're looking at. And after that, if that does turn into a full 1-2 and the world itself makes a transition to cryptocurrencies because they realize that these governments have been effing up since the beginning of time, and that regulation, especially economic regulation, is not beneficial because humans by nature have some sort of problem in their skulls where they take advantage of other humans. And someone was saying to me on live stream a long time ago that regulation is a necessity because humans are not that smart. And you're going to have people that take advantage through the act of monopolies or whatever it might be. So my response was if smart people take advantage of dumb people, and the smart people, quote unquote, are the ones that are in charge of our regulations, isn't there a problem there? And my whole thing is I don't believe humans are indefinitely dumb. We're incredible creatures and we can learn very quickly. Do I deny that in the future that if we somehow go to a free market and government is only there to help citizens in a respectable way, that there's not going to be problems? No, there's going to be problems. There's going to be classism still. But the whole thing is you're going to have an actual chance in a free market to become something. And you have that now, but not to the same degree that we did when we were on the gold standard. When we were on the gold standard, there can't be any manipulation in terms of massive bailouts and inflation. They can't hide that stuff when it's on the gold standard. And you take Ponzi schemes or monopolies, for example. All right. If there's a Ponzi scheme in a free market, are people going to get suckered by it and lose money? Absolutely. But what happens as a whole in a free market, the people start understanding better and better to watch out for. And especially that company itself is no longer going to receive any business. But when you have a Ponzi scheme that scams people, but passes regulations by the US financial sector and still is able to get listed or be bought into or be selling products, people still get suckered into it because now you're giving it even more legitimacy. So I'm not going to sit here and rant too long when it comes to this, but here's the bright future ahead of Bitcoin. If we do happen to see a bear market, a long winter, uh, and we do happen to find a bottom somewhere between that 0.618 and 0.382, what does the future of Bitcoin look like? Well, over the next, you know, 1,000 years, we would be looking quite pretty. The 1.618 as at a number that doesn't even make sense to my logical head. But if the US dollar is gone or no longer the primary form of currency, who's to say a number like that doesn't exist because now the US dollar is not necessarily the same. So that's what? Uh $40 million? Now, I don't have a correct time scale for when that's going to get hit, but I think it's cool to think about whether or not everything that I'm saying here is absolute abysmal crap going into your eardrums. I think it's cool to talk about. So I appreciate your time. Hopefully, you guys have a happy weekend, and hopefully, I didn't scare you too much. But I thought this was a cool thing to kind of bring up since we brought it up on live stream the other day. And for everybody that's in the Telegram group, I should be on around 3 p.m. on live stream tomorrow. I'll send a private link in the Telegram. And then shortly after that, on Monday, we'll be back to regular live streaming. So you guys take it easy. I love you, and I'll see you soon. All right, guys? Goodbye.